Okay, we're going to go through the Pictorial Calligraphy project. I'm very excited about this project. I have not done it previously, but we're going to see how we can turn the lesson about contour lines into a really awesome, hopefully fun for you project. So, like I said, it's called Pictorial Calligraphy. You're going to be creating contour by filling it in with text. So you're going to try to stretch your creativity a little bit. So you're going to create an image using the outline, also known as the contour of an object. And then you're going to fill it in with words, hopefully the word that spells that object, or if you want to choose something that's like a phrase that goes along with that object or pieces of that object. I can explain more about that one later, to fill in the actual image. All right, so why? This is a form of typography, and it really ties into what we've been talking about with contour lines. Also, it's going to work on building some of your skills, such as coloring in very neatly and filling in space, because you're going to have to fill in a space that is not normal. Okay, wait, what is typography? Typography is the art of arranging letters in a text in a way that creates copy that is legible, clear, and visually appealing to the reader. Typography involves the font style, its appearance and structure, and it also works to try to pull a certain emotion and convey very specific messages. So, typography is going to be the things that you would see commonly on posters, records, albums, anything, t-shirts that is designed graphically to kind of grab your attention or to put you in a certain mood when you're looking at something. Okay, so looking at these four images, we're going to see lots of different things coming from typography. So if I were to ask you, of these four, which one looks the most like something from the Old West? You would probably immediately look up here at this one. So this one has the little extra serifs put into the center of the word to kind of give it that age. It has the vintage look going on about it, as well as the vintage flourishes. These little things are called flourishes, where they kind of come out around the words. So that would give you a certain feel if you were going for a vintage or a Western look. Now, if I were to ask you which one of these looks the most like the 1970s, you're probably going to jump to one of these two over here. First of all, this one has the very 70s color scheme where it has that mustardy yellow along with the red that we see a lot in those images. Also, it also has a very free-form lava lamp look to it. Now, down here, this one might remind you of a concert poster or something that you would see at a restaurant trying to advertise a new product. So this one with the wavy letters also makes you feel a certain way. You wouldn't think of this and think of it as being too serious. This is never a font like you would use if you were going to put something on a resume. It's very fun. So typography makes you feel one way or the other. And then the last one, I choose this one because when you have this distressed, slanted writing, it almost always puts you in not necessarily an aggressive mode, but a very like action mode. So this would be something you might see on a t-shirt or something that relates to sports, just because it has that slant to where it's leaning one way, like it's moving forward. So typography is all of this. It is taking the words mixed with how they are presented, whether that's the color schemes or if they're put inside of an object or if they're slanted, the color schemes, like all of those work together with the font to make the viewer feel or understand a certain thing. Now, for your objects. For this project, you can choose any object as long as it's school appropriate to transform into your pictorial calligraphy project. Some things you can look up. These are the two different projects that I had found on the internet that relate to this. This one right here is a beyond what I'm asking you to do. It is very awesome, but I love the example of how they use the word fish. And they fill it in with the word fish. It is a fish. But then they went way further by creating this cool background, and they also added this 3D element of the words. That is not required of you, but I wanted to show you kind of one of the best examples that I had seen out there before we get too far into this. So you can choose any object you want to. It doesn't have to be an animal. It could be a fruit. It could be a tool that you use on a regular basis. It's kind of up to you. So here's just a quick breakdown that I had found of someone else doing the same project. It just shows how they started with their outline and then they kind of figure out how they're going to fit the letters in the object. They start in the middle, like I recommended you guys earlier in the year. It's always a good idea if you're spelling something to start in the middle to make sure you have enough room for all of it. So then they went back in and just bubbled their letters to touch both sides. Okay, and I'll demo this in just a second. And here's some more examples down here. So it doesn't have to just be an animal, like I said. There's different foods, objects, tiara, wing, donut, banana. I really like this pineapple one just because I thought this part of a pineapple would be kind of tricky, but they did it. Looks great. Okay, so here's my example. The first step was I sketched it. It's super light. I hope when you're drawing these sort of things, you're going to start really light so you can erase it. It's going to be a raccoon. It's really hard to see in this picture, but you can kind of see where I've started and went really, really, really light. All right, so then I filled it in. I used the words trash panda. It's sort of a family joke that we have, but we always call raccoons trash pandas. It relates to Guardian of the Galaxies if you've watched that movie. But so I filled it in. I started kind of right here, and I knew that panda was going to get smaller, but it was going to be the tail. But I really saw this as being an H in his back leg. So then I moved forward and back with it. Again, sketch really lightly. My sketch didn't show up very well, so I went ahead and traced mine in Sharpie so that you guys could see how I did the letters before I started coloring. And then you're just going to color it like that image would be. So here's mine. I colored him in gray like a raccoon would be, and then I striped his tail and put his paws in. And you can leave the background white if you want to. You can go back in like that image of the fish and add in a really cool background if you wish. That part's sort of up to you. For a project, I'm wanting you to simply take the object and illustrate it with letters. So the background is not part of it, but it could always go further than this. Okay, so I'm excited to see all of your awesome work. Let's switch over to the camera. So here's mine again. I'm going to go through another one really quickly to show you a couple pointers. First of all, I'm going to choose an apple for this one. It's a really easy one to do. So I'm first going to draw my apple on my page. I'm going to go ahead and put a leaf on there too. So then I have apple right here. So I'm going to make this part a P because it's going to have that big rounded area anyways. Then I think I'm going to make the L come down and over. And remember, you can kind of move letters around as you're doing this. They don't have to all be in an exact spot. You can use lowercase, uppercase, sort of whatever is going to fit with your design. Okay, and then I'm going to curve this one. All right, so then I have this extra space. And I think I'm even going to go in and make my leaf L, E, A, and then F. Well, the F worked out nicely there. Okay, then these little spaces in between will become obsolete. I'm going to trace mine with a Sharpie again so that you can see it a little better. Remember, you should have a Sharpie somewhere from the beginning of the year art kit that you got. So hopefully you're able to use that with this project. Okay. Then come up here for the leaf. Now after I do this, I'm going to go in and show you guys how to start coloring. Just a few tips when you're coloring to make things a little neater. So there we have the word apple, leaf, and that's pretty much a done design. All that's left to do is to color. I'm going to erase out the pencil so if that's out of my way, you can still tell that's an apple, but I really think the colors are going to help it. I'm going to use crayons. Feel free to use your colored pencils or your markers if you wish. But starting with crayons, I always press really hard and break mine. There are other ways of doing it, but I have kind of bad luck of breaking crayons. So you're going to want to start by coloring in all the space that you have. And then I go back and layer. I go in opposite direction if I'm trying to make it darker. I think for this apple, I'm going to make just the edges darker. If you go back and look at the slideshow of the examples that I showed you, the pineapple does something similar. The person that did that one, they sort of colored in everything a nice solid color. Then they went back to the edges and shaded it in. It just adds a little extra to it. So if you do this and go back and color a little extra on the edges, you'll end up getting a nice clean look at the end. And if you color outside the lines, that's okay. We're supposed to be flexible as artists. I always tend to hit one spot where my crayon gets a little wild and goes beyond my outlines. You can always go back and rebold your outlines if you wish. I'm gonna do this as quickly as I can, as neatly as I can. It looks a little different on the camera than it does in front too. On the camera, it really shows those highlights where I've colored darker on the edges. And again, you don't have to use realistic colors. For some reason you really wanted your apple to be a pink apple, or you were going for a different abstract color effect, I'm fine with that. I just want you to color these in so that they look complete. I feel like it's just an outline. They're a little harder to read. So you can come back in with another color if you want. I always take red and this like pinky color and come back over it. Again, I'm just showing you that if you take the time to color, and this isn't even taking that long, if you take the time to color a little neatly, it will take your project way further. So I just added a different color on top, and it is giving me a more polished, finished look when I get done here. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Feel free to color with colored pencils or markers. Like I said, you can still do these same effects with those two objects as well. And that's our project. You're going to take an object, fill it in with a word of that object. All right, can't wait to see what you guys do.